Okay, if you'd like to look again, next pass we have a different set of coordinates based on the onboard T57. These are echo decimal 3 and forward decimal 8. I say it again, echo decimal 3, forward decimal 8. Same chart, over. Roger. Latitude plus 0.523. Longitude divided by 2, 11.710. Over. Roger that. There we go. Roger, that's clear. You're not too loud and clear, but I think it's the same fellow. Can you read both? Loud and clear. You're really coming in beautifully, over. Okay, stay. And plus 1 OpenGL. And go. Alright, step 3 roll. I just have LOS and ALS times for you this pass with misstep. LOS 109er plus 21 plus 12. ALS coming around the corner 1100735. Over. Roger that. Okay, if you'd like to look again, next pass we have a different set of coordinates based on the onboard T57. These are echo decimal 3 and forward decimal 8. I say it again, echo decimal 3, forward decimal 8. Same chart, over. Roger. Latitude plus 0.523. Longitude divided by 2, 11.710. Over.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Thursday night code and chill. Been having a pretty good day today. Can't complain. I've been working on some Descent Horizon. Making some progress. Made a lot of progress since last week on this UI stuff, so it's been really encouraging. I'll show you guys some of that in a bit. Corbin says, "Hey Alex, good eve." Hey Corbin, how's it going, man? Welcome back. It's good to see you again, man. Hopefully you had a good week. Did you do anything interesting today? I had some really good Iberico ham today. Got it from Wegmans. It was delicious. That was like one of the highlights of my day. Okay. Cool. I guess we can go ahead and kind of get started here today. Does everything sound fine on everybody else's end? I sound nice and clear. The music's not overwhelming or anything like that. If it is, let me know. I'm gonna assume it's fine. Corbin says, "Today I'm working on disassembling a DOS/4G game from the 90s, Star Trek: A Final Unity. Using Claude and open source, no modern engine port exists. Treading new ground." Damn, dude. That sounds like a lot. Disassembling an old game. How do you even go about that? I know, like, I've seen people do like some reverse engineering online. Are you like literally poking around in memory and stuff like that and trying to figure out like what the original code is, or how does that work? Successfully deployed stuff at work, 10:30 p.m. last night after 5 iterations. LOL. Yes, audio is clear. Okay, awesome. Oh man, 10:30 p.m. That's painful. I've been there. Those late night deploys will have you really scared for the rest of the night after that. Cool. Well, okay, I'm glad to hear that the audio is good. I'll show you guys what I've gotten done since last week. I'm gonna just pop up the game here, and we'll take a look. So if you guys remember last time, we were going through a bunch of like UI stuff. I've been working on updating the whole UI library and things like that to try to get the game a little more performant. Then last week everything was like all broken, and it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty broken, but it's not as bad this week as it was last week. We made some progress, but the way I think about it is it's going to be broken until it's not, right? So we've got pretty much all of the UI for like the actual flight HUD looking pretty decent. A lot of this stuff was all over the place last week with the like X and Y axis. The Y axis still is not updated to use all the new like reactive code yet. So like anything with the Y axis, the height, or honestly most of the color stuff is not correct. So like the only thing that really has been updated is like anything to do with the X axis, width, and stuff like that. I've been trying to like take it kind of piecemeal here, you know. Okay, and then so yeah, this is all cleaned up. This looks decent here. It's more or less how it should. I'm gonna die. I knew it. Yeah, so you can see there's still some weirdness here with the borders and that kind of thing. Still a work in progress, but like it works right now. There's some stuff that's still broken, so I'm gonna just give myself some cheats. Do not go gentle. Anybody who's ever seen Interstellar, which if anybody hasn't seen Interstellar, watch it. One of the best movies of all time. But that's the cheat code for infinite health in the game. Do not go gentle. I'm gonna go ahead and land here, and then I'll show you guys. So the flight HUD and all that stuff is pretty decent, in decent shape right now. The thing that needs the most work in terms of like fixing it up for the reactive stuff, like the reactive UI, I'm calling it Pulse, so I'm just gonna start referencing it by Pulse, and then that way I don't have to keep saying reactive stuff. The Pulse migration, it's all like the EVA stuff is just like not anywhere near done. It's completely broken. So like right here, this is the player's inventory, right? Looks terrible. Look, it's all over the place, right? Some of it works okay, right? But a lot of stuff is wrong. Just because like the values aren't updating, and then like the lander's inventory looks terrible, and the weight distribution stuff doesn't work. So there's stuff to be done here. This is not really what I want to focus on yet. I'm gonna focus on some of the main menu stuff today, just because I have a seg fault that I wanted to iron out. So we'll start with that. Corbin says, I'm curious about immediate versus reactive UI terminology. Is reactive like retain mode or something else? Is it like dumping the same content repeatedly to the frame buffer unless it changes? Reactive versus like immediate, is immediate mode, like at least the way that I see it, and this is what I'm referencing when I say immediate mode. I don't know if this is necessarily the correct terminology for it, but with immediate mode, what exists already and what's being ported over effectively is I have this UI tree where every node can have like any amount of children, and then those children can have children, and we go through and we iterate through the tree, and we basically just render each node and calculate all the styles for each node on each frame. So like as we start from the root node, we calculate its styles, we calculate, okay, what color should it be, what's the width, what's the height, all these different things, and then we move on to the children and we calculate their things, and then the children's children, you know, we traverse the tree, right? That is what I mean by immediate mode. We're doing this on every single frame. We're not keeping anything from any previous frames, just straight like raw dog in that frame rate, right? For reactive, I'm thinking of it more in terms of like, okay, we can cache most of these values, right? Like on any given frame, the width probably hasn't changed of any given element, right? Like if you're looking at here, like this element here, the width, the first time it gets calculated, that's the width, right? And like unless the text inside of here changes, the width of this little like tooltip is not going to change. And so any frame that we spend calculating that width is like that's time, that's calculation that's wasted, right? And the more complex your UI gets, the more of these computations we're wasting because we have more and more of these things to compute, right? And that's just the width. There's also like the X, the Y position, the heights, the colors, anything, because like my UI system is relatively expressive. Like you can pass in a lambda to any style property, and instead of like hard coding, like, okay, I want this color to be red, right? You can pass in a lambda, and that lambda will run, and you can perform any arbitrary calculation in there that you want. And then as long as you return a color out the lambda, you're good. So that's really powerful because it means like in that lambda, you can use other state to calculate, okay, does this need to be red, or does this need to be blue, or does it need to be black? And you don't have to imperatively go and say, oh, I want to change the color of this element to be black. The element can kind of react on its own and update its own color, right? Now that's part of what makes doing it in the immediate mode super expensive, because if I'm recalculating the color every single frame, that's bad. So the pulse rewrite is effectively saying, all right, we can treat certain elements or certain properties of the elements as signals, and effectively have, whenever we're calculating a property, like let's say we're calculating the color of something, we can cache that, right? Unless something that lambda relies on has changed. So like maybe the like let's just say like the color of this box depends on the X position of the lander. Maybe if the lander was more to the left side of the screen, then maybe we want this little tooltip to be more red, versus if it's more to the right side of the screen, we want it to be more green, right? And like we can do that by just calculating, okay, what's the X position currently, and then am I going to be red or green, right? Problem is that we're recalculating that on every frame, and right now the lander's stationary, so like me recalculating that color completely wasted, right? So if I cache it and then I have it only recalculate if the X position of the lander changed, boom, I can save the calculation on the majority of the frames, right? So that's kind of what that's for. Roman Noodle says, found this on my feed. Hey Roman, welcome. Hope you stay a while. Hope you check out what we've got going on, and let me know if you got any questions. There's quite a bit going on in this game. But yeah, okay. So let me show you guys where our segfault is. So I'm gonna restart the game because like right now the game, once you've gotten into the game, you can't get back to the main menu. So you gotta like kill it and restart it. Okay, so we've got the main menu, right? And you can hit continue, load game, whatever. This looks fine. The problem is I want to be able, so this morning or earlier today, I added the ability to set like your frame rate cap, and then I was like, okay, well let me actually go and the frame rate cap can be set in the engine, but like you can't actually update it through the UI. So I needed to go and add that actual UI element to the UI. And then I clicked options, and then boom, like immediate, not segfault, it's a bad optional access, right? Which might as well be a segfault, right? So as you can see, we got this bad optional access down here, and we just got to figure out what's going on there. So that's the first thing I want to tackle, because once I get that bad optional access fixed, I'll have the options UI showing, and I think it's going to look bad, because I don't think that I've worked on it at all since I started working on the Pulse UI rewrite, and I think a lot of stuff is going to be broken. But I do want to be able to actually add that that selector for the frame cap, because right now I have it capped at 60 just by default in the engine, which is working fine. But I like to, as I'm implementing stuff, as I build out like new features, especially if I'm adding something to the engine, I don't like having a big backlog of things. So like I'll just go ahead and add it, even though I'm in the middle of this UI rewrite, and it costs me like almost no time to do it. So okay, so I have a bunch of debugs. going on in this in the terminal here. I don't typically have it all like this. I typically just output my FPS, but since I've been trying to trace down where that's happening, I have a bunch of extra logs. So one area that I've been kind of like looking through is I have this main menu options screen file, and its job is to actually render the options portion of that menu, right? Which is like, it's not the left side where we were showing like continue, new game, load game, whatever. It's like once you actually click options, what are the options that are shown to the player? That's what this class is responsible for, right? So it will mount, like its parent component will call a mount function on it. It'll pass in a mount point, which is just a Singularity UI element, and then the component itself will do all the work to mount itself and figure out its styling and all that. So I have a log that I'm placing here for now. I ideally I would have like a debugger attached to this, something like GDB or something like that. But a lot of times it's so much work to set them up, and the payoff isn't that great, especially compared to just throwing a few logs and running stuff and just waiting until it breaks. So yeah, okay. So I have this log in here for when the when the options container starts mounting, and then I have one for when it finishes mounting, because I'm curious to see, okay, is the seg fault or the bad optional access happening in the mount, or is it mounting properly and then like it's failing somewhere else, maybe during the render, right? Because I really don't know. So what I'm gonna do is, it should have already gotten logged. So okay, here we go. So we logged out mounting options container, then we logged out finished mounting options container. So that means it's not in the mount, because if the bad optional access was inside the mount, then we wouldn't have seen the finished, right? So I can go ahead and honestly just remove these. It's not useful anymore. But then what I need to do is, I think that it's got to be during the render, right? So I need to figure out, after it's being mounted, what's the exact next thing that's happening, right? So let's see. We mount it. We also mount the option section, but that shouldn't matter because we already checked it. Can't actually calculate the Y position. I think that's fine. Yeah, so we mount all of these, and then we mount the actual the option controller. But all of the mounting seems like it's working, right? So the only other place that it really could be is somewhere in the render. So let's see. So we've got, I want to see where this is being called, actually, the mount function. I want to see after it's called in here, main menu option screen mount. Okay, and then after that, we're done calling mount screen. Let me see what's calling mount screen. Mount screen. Yeah, here. Okay, and that's just happening when something is, yeah, when we emit a navigate main menu screen event in the event bus. Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. Okay, so we'll mount the screen, and then that's done, and then the event's finished. Okay. Okay. And then actually, it looks like after we finished mounting, we also like flushed some stuff from Pulse's dirty queue, and then that finished. And then only after that did it actually crash. What's interesting to me is, oh, actually, I was gonna say that, well, let me see, am I doing, okay. I was thinking, like, after every frame, I usually output like that the frame was finished if I have the engine log level set to debug, but my engine log level is actually set to info right now, so that's why that didn't output. Okay, so within here, at this point, it actually gets kind of tricky, right? Because we finish mounting the thing, and then immediately on the next frame, it'll try and go and render it, right? So in theory, in any of these like child renders, we could be trying to access something optional. Let's see. So if we go to the So the on scroll, this set on scroll shouldn't be triggering anything like that because it should only be running this function if we actually scrolled, at which point we wouldn't have actually scrolled yet because this is crashed. Like, it's the bad optional access is immediately after we try to render, it looks like. So I haven't even had an opportunity to scroll yet, so I don't think that the issue's there. I wonder, all of this stuff succeeds on left click. Could it be left click related? I don't think so. I don't think it can be left click related. Okay, let's see. Mount point add option, add child options container, then the options container. Yeah, so we're just creating the options container here. We're passing it these styles. After render, calculate container scroll meta. Now, okay, that actually seems like it could be something because what that is after the element renders, we can have a optional hook of like another lambda to run to do some extra calculations. And I wonder if it could be in there. Let's see, calculate container scroll meta. So we'll go and get the metadata from the container. Let me see. Does in the element, let's see, is metadata optional? Metadata. It's an any, but okay. It shouldn't be an issue. I don't think, at least. Because what's happening is, where was that? We pass in metadata as an empty like struct, so it should be getting initialized. I was thinking like, okay, what if we're trying to like do this container get metadata? But I'm honestly, what I can do is I can just throw in one of those logs in here and see if this is even succeeding. So let's see. And then I'll throw in another, okay, starting, calculate scroll meta. And then I'll throw one in at the end as well, just so that we know, okay, it ran this whole function and, whoops, it ran this whole function and there were no issues, you know? Done. Okay. Now I'll just quickly rebuild that. Yeah. Once you start having like an event bus and like just events being sent back and forth and things not executing immediately, gets exponentially more complex, it feels like, to debug some of these issues. But we'll persevere, we'll figure it out. Because if it's not this, if it's not the after render, then it has to be the actual render of the UI element. And unfortunately, I don't have a good way of, like, my UI elements don't have like an ID on them or anything like that currently. I could use like a pointer address to identify them if I really need to, and that we might end up having to do that here. But yeah, I don't have any way of saying, okay, like element ABC is rendering right now, so I can't easily output, even if I was to try to like, you know, track, okay, this specific element's going to render and like what's going on in there. Don't have an easy way to do that, but I might just use the pointer address and see if I can figure it out that way. Thankfully, this it's pretty easy to get to. It's just launch the game and then click the options button, and then we see if it breaks. And it's gonna break, but okay. So okay, starting calculate scroll meta and then done calculate scroll meta. So that's good. The render finished. I'm actually, you know what I'm curious about? I'm gonna put my engine log level into debug, because I'm curious how far, like, am I getting into that next frame at all? Or is it just like failing within that same frame? It should be failing in the same frame, but it can never be too careful, you know? Okay, so options and then boom. Okay, cool. So it is failing in the same frame. That's nice, because we can see here, okay, starting calculate scroll meta, done calculate scroll meta, and then if it started the next frame, where like if we continued, it would have said something like frame complete, and it didn't say that, right? Like, So that's good. What we can do is in the actual engine, the main engine file that's like running the game loop, I can check and see if I can find. Okay, so app iterate, right? So basically what's happening is we'll do this dirty queue flush, right? And then we actually call the render, and then we update some frame stuff, and then we render the frame, right? And then we'll output frame complete. It's possible that, so we see that the dirty queue flush here, that happens, right? Because if you look over here, it says pulse UI dirty queue flush started and then finished, right? So that, like, we know that that finished. So it's the breakage is happening somewhere in these 3 lines, right? That bad optional access is happening somewhere in here. My guess, truthfully, is that it's directly here in this scene stack manager render call. But I can go ahead and throw in another log in here, and I'll just say something like after scene stack manager render, right? So that way I'll know, okay, like, did this finish? Because if it did, then I don't need to look any further, right? And I'm guessing that's it. That is where it is, because then we can isolate it down directly to here, just in this area. And again, that encompasses like rendering the actual UI, that portion. So it might, you know, it should be something to do with the way that the actual UI is rendering for the options. But I just want to do all the due diligence of like narrowing it down, and then because it might be something else along that path that's being weird, you know. But like optional access, it's like I don't think I'm doing any kind of optional access in the actual element. That's why I'm wondering, like, is it really in that element render, or is there something else slightly higher up going on, you know? So okay, we're gonna hit options again. Boom, same thing. Oh, there you go. So we did not get to that after scene stack manager render, so we know, okay, that's not the spot. Yeah. Did I build? Yeah, I did. Okay. Okay. Cool. So I just removed that. We don't need it. Okay. So we know it's not the calculate scroll meta because that's happening. And then, so we can just remove these logs so that we don't have anything getting in the way, you know. The less logs we have, the simpler it'll be to try to debug this. Okay, calculate container. So that was in the after render, right? Let me see. After render, yeah, that was here. Okay. And then this has an on scroll, this has an on click, this has a mount options section. Okay. Let me see. In the options container styles, am I doing anything fancy? All I'm doing is, okay, width is simple, it's a percentage, height is a percentage, padding is 20, border color is just secondary, it's coming from the theme. Border thickness, everything here is very standard for the options container specifically, right? But just because the options container is simple doesn't mean that the menu options are. So after we have the options container added, then we add the scroll bar. I wonder if the scroll bar is doing anything fancy. Okay, it's getting its parent, getting padding, getting border thickness. We get some metadata in here on the Y. We've got inner height, total scroll height. Okay. No, I don't think it's in there anywhere. If we get desperate enough, we can throw some logs in here into like literally every single one of the computations to just try to narrow things down. I don't want to get there if I don't have to. Yeah, I don't think that. Oh, look at this. Anycast. No, that's bad. Okay, my bad. We're dealing with a bad optional access, not with anycasts. so that shouldn't be it. Okay, I don't think it should be the scroll bar. Okay, now register menu options. What does this do? We just take in a mount point, and then that returns a menu controller. Okay. Flattened options. Menu controller takes in the list of menu options. Okay. We publish push menu controller. Okay. We remove the child. This is okay. This is if you press escape to back out. That should be fine. Yeah. Okay. I don't think that that's the problem either. Okay, get option by section. So percentage value formatter, gameplay, just some lambdas to format the values of some of the outputs that go here. And then setting UI model, that should be fine too, I think. Basically what I'm doing here is, like, I didn't want to have to manually, like, mount a bunch of, like, components, so I tried to do it a little more data driven. So there's, like, a gameplay section, and then the gameplay section can have, like, just structs describing what the, like, UI is supposed to look like. So in this case, we have, like, a name for that option, and then the type is a toggle, and any other, like, config that needs to be passed in. Okay, audio. These are all on-change things, so I think it should be fine. And then the settings UI model, the way that works is it's gonna have, like, there's no optional values here. Like, these are all pulse signals, so they should always be populated. I don't think they'll ever be unpopulated. Again, we're gonna have to test assumptions at some point if we get to that point, but I don't think that those can really be a problem. UI art scaling, these are on change, binding. Okay. Yeah, I think those are all fine. And then we actually call the mount option section. Now, this is where the meat and potatoes of this is, so it's entirely possible that the issue is going to be somewhere in here. So this is basically just trying to figure out, okay, what's the total height? Yeah, what's the total height of all the siblings? Don't remember how this works. It's been a while since I've touched this. Sibling height total normalized, so we'll normalize the height. Okay, scroll meta. A lot of metadata fetching here. Then the Y, we'll try to get the height. Environment manager, get UI scaling factor. That'll actually return a float. Okay. And then we mount the option controller. Okay, that, I mean, nothing's sticking out to me so far. Config, get if. Okay, get if. No, it's not that, because that's just to do with variance. I don't think it's that, at least. Okay. Meta, again, anycast, bad anycast, whatever. We don't care if it's bad, we'll just return an empty thing on drag start. Okay. Okay. Yeah, mount option control. Okay. So yeah, for each option, we'll add a container, and then at least we'll create a container, and then we pass that option in to mount option controller, and then the actual option will be added inside the container. Okay. Scroll option. You know what I'm curious about? I can start kind of just, like, commenting out parts of this code and then seeing if it works. It's another way to narrow things down a little bit, because nothing is like immediately sticking out to me, and I need to start like lowering the surface area of things that I need to check, because like this portion of the UI is relatively complex. So what if I just, I mean, this is kind of dumb, but I'm gonna just comment out this entire function effectively. Where was I? Where was I? I just lost my spot. I don't even know what just happened there. Okay, here I was. Okay. So, honestly, I don't even need to do that. Let me just, where is this being called? Here. So, I'll just comment out that call, and we'll see if it breaks. Now, my gut is telling me that that's gonna not break. I mean, the UI is not gonna render for it, but I don't think it'll break. So that'll help us narrow it down, because then we just have to check, okay, what are the option sections doing? Some of these builds can be kind of long. A lot of this stuff I need to move into CPP files. There's like no reason that that all this stuff needs to be in a header. It makes my compilation take longer, but you know, when you're iterating and you're just building stuff, you want to get things done quickly. You don't always end up cleaning things up after. Not as much as you would like anyway. Okay, options, cool, okay. Perfect, so we got a little box rendering, so we know that the problem is not with everything else that was above this and after it, so cool. Okay, we can go ahead and uncomment this now. We'll go into mount options section, and now let's see what happens if my cat's over there playing with a bag. If you guys hear any noise, that's what you're hearing. Okay. I don't think that this section is going to be an issue, because we're literally just iterating over stuff and like summing something up. I don't think that that's going to be the problem. I wonder if I remove this mount options controller, right? That's a interesting spot to check, because then that'll validate if everything else around this is working and maybe just this portion is failing, or whatever is in that portion is failing. If not, then we know, okay, that's not the problem, and our surface area becomes somewhere between the start of this function and effectively the end of this function. But we're working our way inwards, you know? We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Great. So we know that that is not the problem. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll just comment out this entire section, to be honest. Because I'm curious to see if it's these like containers at all, or if it's this upper portion here, because we know mount option section, everything before it worked. Then once we started actually mounting the individual option sections, that's when things started going haywire. I don't see this being an issue here, to be honest, but it's something, you know. If this works, again, we're paring down that attack surface. Attack surface? It's a kind of weird way to put that, huh? Okay. Let's see, what have we got? Okay, now options. Okay. Well, okay, so I'm validated in thinking that that portion of the code wasn't the problem because that just worked, right? Like it still showed everything. So something in here, and we know it's not the mount option controller. So something in here is giving us bad optional access. And now it's starting to like increasingly point to the scroll meta stuff. That just seems so unlikely to me though, because it was getting initialized. Here's what I'll do. I will section title element. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll comment out just this portion, right? And let everything else rock. And if we still have that same problem, then I don't think that the issue's there. Oh wait, I didn't rebuild. Let me do that again. Oh man. These kind of bugs are always quite a goose chase. What's everybody's craziest bug that they've ever tracked down? Like something that was just boggling your mind for hours and days, even maybe weeks, and then you finally figured it out. And I want to hear what you guys have gone through. Tell me your war stories. I had a pretty crazy bug when I first started as a junior engineer. I was working at this startup, and there was an app built in Ruby on Rails, and Ruby is big on like making the language extensible and stuff like that. And there was a contractor that was hired to build out most of that application, and that's kind of important for later. But basically what happened was we were upgrading, I think, from like Rails 3 to Rails 5 or something like that. And we upgraded it, everything was working fine, we released it to production, everything's good. We come in the next day, and like apparently I forget, it was like orders were being placed, but like large portions of like the price were being cut off. So people were getting shit for like way cheaper than they were supposed to. And like I think in that one day it cost the company like $5,000. They were selling like it was like a B2C product, you know, like to consumers. So over the course of one day, you're not gonna like lose crazy amounts, but it was like 5K, and we spent like all day trying to figure out. Me and my senior we were like just digging through the entire code base trying to figure out what was going on, and just could not put our finger on it. Like everything looked correct, and it's like 2 or 3 a.m. We're still in the office, you know, we're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And he notices something in like there's like some file in some random spot in the code base where the contractor literally patched, I think like changed how the modulus operator worked. I'm really fuzzy on this, but like changed how the modulus operator worked, or one of the math operators in the Ruby language, and it worked, I guess, in the older versions, and then once we upgraded, like that broke silently or something like that, and that was it. That was what was causing that discrepancy where like thousands of dollars were wiped out from orders, and we couldn't really do anything about it. Like, you know, you fix it, but that money's lost. So don't change language features. It's not a good idea. Leave the language alone. Corbin says, worst bug ever pre-AI was modifying a digraph library in Ruby 1.8. There you go, Ruby. You see? It's Ruby. I'm telling you. Ruby 1.8 to detect cycles. I was very inexperienced as a dev. It was for requirement analysis. It sucked. Yeah, I'm telling you, dude, Ruby. Ruby is an amazing language. Like ergonomically, it's great. But like, you can do some crazy stuff in it that it can be bad. It can be bad. Or he says, Corbin says, or the endless memory allocation bugs in the C library passfill that is dynamically loaded into Windows CSRSS exe, which crashes the system if it crashes, running that on an ad controller. Oh, geez. Oh, yikes. That is not good. That sounds painful. How do you even... Yikes. Dynamically loaded into the... I don't even know how you begin to find, like, to like debug that. That sounds like a lot. Okay. Cool. So the game crashed again. Perfect. And so we know that it's not this style portion here, because it still crashed. So this is weird, because then what it's effectively suggesting, right, is it's not the mounting of the option controller. It's some portion of this in here, which doesn't seem crazy to me. Like, going through the options and then for each option mounting a child, creating an option container mounting the child, and that works. Okay. I mean, in theory, this should just fix it, right? Like, if that is the issue. But that's so weird. It's gonna have to be, I'm guessing it's something inside of the actual UI element class that's being accessed conditionally here. Because this is weird. Corbin says, how do you even debug that? Yeah, you run a VM and hit it with tons of random data and pray, find bugs, rinse and repeat. Don't do this in prod, please. Yeah. Yikes. So effectively what was happening was, like, every VM you were running was just, you were just waiting for it to crash, effectively. I mean, that's pretty smart, though. At least that way it's not crashing your actual system, you know? Because that would have pissed me off. Okay, let's see. So, options. Okay, cool. So, these sections are good. That's weird. So, okay, so mount option controller. If I just comment that out, it still crashes. Like, I just want to confirm that again. Maybe I'm misremembering, but, like, just commenting that portion out would still cause it to crash. But then if I comment this whole thing out, it's fine. So it's got to be, it's something, yeah, it's got to be something here. I just want to confirm before I start digging further into here, but it feels pretty isolated into this spot now. Option controller, option name, option container, I can't read. Corbin says, yeah, it was between leaks pointer derefs and various password inputs causing buffer overruns or corruption. What happens if a user sends a null byte in the middle of their string? Lol. Password inputs. Okay, so it was multiple bugs is what you're saying. Like, it wasn't just one thing. It was like you're playing whack-a-mole in a VM. You were just, like, running a VM and waiting for things to break and then fixing one thing after another. That sounds like a nightmare. That sounds like my worst day as a developer. I applaud you for sticking through that. Especially you said it was when you were more inexperienced. Man, that sounds painful. Okay, wait. Yeah, so okay. That's exactly what we expected. It still crashed. So Corbin says passfill determines if user typed passwords are acceptable per organization complexity requirements, and has tons of features like regex, etc. in that CRSS critical process. Okay, yikes. Huh. I mean, yeah, it sounds. I don't think I've ever worked with passfill before. Is it like a library or something? I think you said. Let me see. Where did you say that? Yeah, the C library pass fill. Jeez. It doesn't feel like a C library that's checking passwords needs to be injecting itself into the CS RSS exe. That doesn't seem like a job that it needs to do, because it's like effectively like a fancy filter, right? Yeah, it's a DLL that loads into Active Directory on Windows servers. Is it like controlling the actual like Windows level passwords, like from within, like the passwords that you would be setting on like files in Windows or something like that? Okay, cool. All right, so this crashed. That's good. We expected it to crash. All right, so mount point, add child. We're getting a style from base. That's the options container, and that's not doing anything fancy. I think we looked at that already. The Y. Let me just. I want to see if I just return 0 here. I don't think that'll matter. Let me see. Return 0. Yeah. I mean, is it just the Y calculation that's failing? Like after the actual element gets mounted, it's trying to calculate the Y. If I just return 0, is it gonna work? Because why would I have a bad optional access here? Oh man, lots of building. I really need to refactor. I mean, this like thankfully these builds are not super slow, but it's like longer than it needs to be for what I'm doing. Like this should have been like a 5-second build for that. Okay, try that again. Bum, bum. Options. Okay. It's just like it just doesn't like having the option containers mounted at all. It just doesn't like them. Option name? Can it? No, it wouldn't be the option name. There's no way, right? No way, Jose. Yeah, that's just a string. Menu option, string. It's not that the option is optional. It's a vector. Yeah, so it's gonna be there. Okay. Calculated. That just returns. It takes in. Okay, so. Man, I'm pretty perplexed here. So, okay. We're listing through the list of options inside of each section, right? And then for each option to the mount point, we're adding a child. Mount point? Isn't... What's mount point? Okay. Yeah, okay. Because we're adding them in between sections. So like first we'll add the section title, and then we'll go through the options and then try to mount each individual option element in there. Yeah, so okay. So UI styles from base option container. The style is there. Overflow is hidden. I mean, that should be fine, but could that be an issue? I don't think so. Okay. Okay. So then on the Y we'll call Singularity unit calculated, and that just means it's going to be a computation that gets run. But we already checked this. It's not this. It's not the Y calculation. It shouldn't be, but I'm just gonna like comment out that whole .y. The only thing I'm thinking, this should not be an issue, to be honest. But we have this equal sign here, and that's capturing like the scope outside of it. I'm wondering if there's nothing optional being accessed in here, and we checked that already. I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark here. I don't think it's gonna be that. Why? Like, what's optional that's being accessed in the option container? I feel like by the time I end up fixing this, it's going to be something like extremely obvious. There's no way it's... Because, okay, when I do add child, it just like takes in the props that were passed in. It passes some things on from the parent, like the scene will come from the parent. Shared from this to actually create a reference, like a shared pointer to the element, and then it'll call add child and pass and create. Yeah, that's the same thing that's happening in every other spot. So I don't think that's the problem. Let's see. We'll catch up on chat here in a second after I check this. Okay, yeah, it's not the problem. I didn't think so. Okay. It's nice to do sanity checks and then make sure that you're still sane, because... Okay. Rohit Rohit says, "Hi, can you tell me something about the game you're making?" Hi Rohit, welcome to the stream. I'm working on a game called Descent Horizon. It's basically like a lunar lander game. If you've ever played Atari's lunar landing game from like the 70s, effectively what you do is you control a lunar lander, and you're constantly falling to the surface of the moon over and over and over again. And it's narrative based. There's like you're trying to figure out why you're falling over and over and over again, because you're piloting this lander, and you'll eventually land on the surface. Once you land on the surface, after a few minutes of exploration, you'll black out. Like your character just blacks out, and you don't know why. And when you wake up from being blacked out, you are back in the sky again, and you're falling towards the surface of the moon again. And you gotta land and try not to die. It's a physics-based game, so all the physics in the game is real. Try to flip it. There's an EVA phase after you land, so I broke off the leg off the lander. There's an EVA phase, so you can like explore the surface of the moon after you're done. There's crafting. My kitty is on the desk. Hi, kitty. Yeah, there's a crafting system. Look at that. That's so funny. There's a level of detail system where like when you zoom in, because when you're flying the lander, you need like one level of detail because you're so zoomed out. But then once you're zoomed in, since you want to be able to see your astronaut and not have it be 2 pixels on the screen, I needed to implement like a level of details thing. So like as you zoom in, it'll switch to like a higher resolution texture. Hi, look at the kitty. But the lander leg, the broken off lander leg, doesn't have a higher resolution yet, so it just looks like this. Look how funny that is. But yeah, there's like a crafting system. There's inventory. Right now, the game is in like a weird state because it's like transitionary. For the UI at least. I started with like an immediate mode GUI, and I'm in the process of updating it to be more reactive and more performant. But in that process, a lot of the UI has broken. So yeah, that's the game. Okay, and yeah, so for anybody who's just hopping in, we're trying to figure out, there's on the menu screen, when we click options, it's crashing. I'm just trying to figure out why it's doing that. Rohit says, it looks really good actually, the lander especially. Thank you, Rohit, I appreciate that. It's all hand-drawn. I painstakingly placed every single pixel on there, animated every single frame. There's a lot of stuff still missing, obviously, but it's been a process. I'm pretty proud of where it is. Okay, let's see. Okay, next thing I'm starting to think is like, I'm wondering if like current theme should never be missing. I don't think it's that. I wonder, I'm gonna try to comment out overflow. Overflow does some magical stuff in the UI element when it's being added to the screen, and I just wonder if in the process of me moving stuff around, if that got weird, you know. because it does more magic than other stuff, if that makes sense. It's like playing around with like OpenGL render textures and all that. So that's the only thing I'm imagining. It could be. And if we see that after removing the overflow that it works, then we're gonna have to muck around in some render pipeline stuff, which will be fun. Rohit says, "Can see your efforts, bro. Your voice says it all. I would definitely play it when it releases." Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's been a process, but yeah, I'll post here once I have like a Steam page or something like that, and can direct you guys there, and we'll find all the updates and stuff. To keep up with the game and all that. Okay, cool. Okay, so removing that overflow didn't do anything. This is getting more and more strange by the minute. More and more strange by the minute. Okay. I'm gonna keep that mount option controller uncommented. Yeah, let me uncomment it. It doesn't matter. What is the problem? It's literally in here. This add child right here. Option name. I'm just gonna, cause I like. It shouldn't be the option name either. It shouldn't be the text. Could it be the text? Could it be the text? It might be the text. It could be the text. Because I was also working on some text calculation stuff recently for like if you pass in text but you didn't pass in a width and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't care about these warnings. It's fine. I'll just like I just need something in there, some kind of identifier. I don't care if it does not append. Okay, you're right. You're right. You're right. I can't just do that. I just wanna actually append. Okay, that should work. Let's see. Let's see. Is it gonna fix it? If that fixes it, then I won't be surprised. I won't, because I'll show you guys in a second here, but I have UI element. The way that text is calculated, like we check if the text was passed in, if it was a function or a string or whatever, like directly passed in. It's just weird because there's other places where I pass in a string directly too, and that's fine. But it could be like some of the width calculation, because the width sometimes depends on the text. Like if you, like I said, if you want to have like a text element that just takes up its own width depending on what it needs, that like auto resizes, we calculate the width based off the actual text content. It's the text. What did I tell you? What did I tell you guys? Why is it the text? Why is it the text? God damn it. I didn't want it to be the text. Okay. Okay. Fine. It's the text. Okay. I don't assume that this is the problem. Like, I don't think the option name is missing. I don't think that's what it is. I really don't. Because like it'll just be an empty string, and that won't give me a bad optional access. What probably is happening is the text is being passed in to the add child, right? And then that eventually gets passed in as element props to the actual creation of the element. And somewhere along the line, that's breaking. Okay. Okay. I can work with that. Let's see. One thing I do want to do while I'm here, I kind of wanna output the option because I'm curious. Is it every single like is it failing on the first option that I'm trying to mount, or is it like going through a few and then one of them fails? You know? Um, yeah. Let me Singularity log manager log. That's gonna be log categories. Actually, I want to do Singularity log categories. UI. I think actually I'm pretty sure it's log level Singularity log level debug first. Okay, and then here, let me just next line. I'll catch up on chat in a minute here. Want to get this done, and then once it's building, I'll take a look. Okay, I'm gonna log out the option name. Or I guess mounted. Here's the tricky thing, actually. It's not the mounting that's failing, so this won't matter. It's gonna output everything correctly. It's when we're actually trying to do something with that text later. So no point in looking at that, actually. Okay, let's trace this. So when we do mount point add child, what's that going to do? That's going to call, it's in the UI element, right? So mount point is a shared pointer to a UI element. So then we'll take a look at what add child does, right? So add child takes in the actual child that we're adding or the element props. In this case, we're not passing in an actual like created child. This is like element props, which is just like it's the properties needed to create a child. So we go here and we pass in the child ID. So we'll take the parent scene, which is already, it's a pointer that's already set on the mount point, effectively, the one that we're trying to add a child to. So that should be fine. And then shared from this, that should also be fine. I doubt that that's the issue. Then we call add child, which is going to be this one up here, right? Yeah, that one up there, because we're going to actually go and create the child props, create the child using child props. And that just calls create, just calls make shared, so it just initializes with the props. Okay. And then it calls add child. All right, fair. Okay, so we're gonna go to, I want to see when that element is created, right? The element props, I'll show you guys what the element props look like. UI element, HPP. So element props is here, and that can take in like the actual style, which is the style like the style decorations. It's the UI style. Yeah, actually, let me just catch up on chat. So Rohit says, I always to do game dev, but only tried in Godot and Unity. Didn't know we can develop a game in C++. Honestly, you could, if you try hard enough, you can develop a game in like any language. You can do like JavaScript or whatever. C++ is a little more low level. I think, I could be mistaken. I think Unreal Engine is C++, or you can use C++ in Unreal Engine. And a lot of games with like custom engines or C++, like my engine here is a custom engine that I just built on top of. It's like a window management library with an input management library with a like rendering library, kind of balled into one, called SDL. But at this point, I pretty much just use SDL for like the input binding, like on the actual OS level, and then the window management. And then I've switched from that to using OpenGL. So at one point I was just using SDL directly and just rendering using its like software renderer. But then once I needed like what's it called, shaders, the SDL doesn't really support shaders directly, at least. So I just rewrote my whole render pipeline in OpenGL. And then the engine here, like, it handles all the coordination between all that stuff. It also does like all the physics and stuff like that. That's like handwritten, the collision logic and all that. Like for example, the particle system, all handwritten. It's not the best particle system in the world, but it's done by hand. And a lot of this project is just like, I want to see how much I can just do completely solo, you know, without relying on anything else. So I want to do all the art myself. I want to do all the programming myself. I want to do literally as much of everything as I can by myself. Like that means music, that means sound effects, the writing, all that. Corbin says, I don't know of any games whose core engine loops are written in like Python or Ruby. Too much overhead. Systems programming like C++, Rust, C#, Go, Zig are good for engines. Yeah. Python and Ruby. There was a project a few years ago called like Ruby 2D, which allowed you to like, effectively what it would do is it would just bind into SDL. So it was just like Ruby bindings for SDL, but you would write the code in Ruby. And like one of the first times I ever like tried to make a game, I didn't get very far because I kind of got bored of it. But like the first time I ever tried to, I used Ruby 2D to do it. And I got like, you could do like, for example, like an Undertale or like something like super light on performance. You could totally do it in Ruby. Python, I don't know. I don't personally really like Python, so I try not to touch it with a 10-foot pole if I don't have to. Then Corbin says, it's common for high-level game logic to be written in a scripting language, no, like Lua. Yeah, like I know a lot of, like, I think it's World of Warcraft or something. Their quest system and stuff like that isn't just entirely written in Lua. Or like Roblox, right? If you're going to make a Roblox game, you're going to be writing that in Lua, which is a scripting language. But then there's also like the web-based games too, like stuff that's written in JavaScript. So, you know, you can find your niche with whatever language you want. There's usually a way to at least make some beginner games, you know. But like Lua, for example, you can even use for like your actual core game. Like there's Love 2D, and I know that there's some games that are being built in Lua now using that. Okay, let's get back to business here. So element props has this variant that's taking in the text, and that can be a string. It can be a function that returns a string, or it can be a function that returns a string and takes in a UI element as a reference, which would just be its own. It's kind of hard to explain, but like it takes in its own element as a reference because sometimes the text might need to be based off of something that's inside the element. So in this case, we're just passing like a straight, like just straight text, right? Like a string directly. And then it can also have all this other stuff, but we've already identified at this point that the text is the issue. So what I'm curious about is, okay, I think the element, it's the element itself is definitely mounting properly. So I don't think that the constructor is failing, but I wonder if what's happening is I have this function here that actually calculates the text, right? So remember, I have like a concept of like signals and like computed things, and then the like computed class can be listened to as if it's a signal for the whole reactiveness stuff, right? So the text here, if we find where text is defined, like you'll see, where is it? I'm a little blind. Right here. So text is a pulse computed string. So here, what I do is like, it doesn't matter what you passed in as the text. I will wrap it in my own little lambda, which effectively turns it into a computed, because I need to like resolve your text, right? Like if you passed in text as like just a string, I need to just get that out. If you passed it as a function, I need to call the function to get the text, right? Or if you passed it in as a function that takes in a UI element, I need to pass in a reference with this, right? So I wonder if it's happening in here. There's one place where we could be so at somewhere down the line having bad optional access. Or where is it? It could be somewhere in the width calculation, because we like the styles that you pass in when you're creating the element, it has its own width like property, right? So you can pass in, okay, I want the width of this element to be whatever, right? But if you don't do that, right? If you don't do that, then it'll use the text to figure out what the width should be. So like, for example, here, we'll first figure out, okay, what's the calculated width depending on the styles that you passed in. If that calculated width is 0, then we'll just return, or if it's greater than 0, we'll return calculated width, right? Or if you didn't have any text, text.get was empty. Or if your font family was empty. I wonder. Ooh. This might be the problem. Why would that be the... I'm getting font family. Huh. Does that, did that element not have a font family set anywhere? Options container. Let me see, where was the style? Okay, yeah, it doesn't have a font family. So that seems like a bad optional access. Let's see. If that's it, that's gonna be so funny. Like that. Okay, see, this is what happens when you write your own engine. Don't do this. Don't write your own engine, because there's no reason that I had to spend like an hour debugging this. I'm happy that I hopefully figured this out. And then I need to now change the code so that I can never do something so stupid again. Because... what the fuck? Man. Okay. Corbin says, I saw you duck debugging, sounding it out and thinking it through. Quack. Yeah, dude. Oh, man. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. You guys are all my ducks right now. I hope you know that. Like, I'm just speaking out loud. Just brain consciousness stream into the stream. But it's hard. Like, it's hard to think out loud and then also, like, actually think. It's weird. It's like... I can't tell if my brain thinks faster than my mouth, or if my mouth moving doesn't let me think, like the vibration in my head or something. I don't know. I don't know. I imagine that as I do this more, I'll get better at it. And hopefully I'll be as good at programming on stream as I am typically in real life. I'm not programming Jesus, I'll say that, but not too bad. And I usually don't do... doesn't take me an hour of debugging to find out that I was missing a font family. This shouldn't be an issue. This should not be a bug. Like, get font family. This file, like, since the code is so much more zoomed in than I'm used to, a lot of this stuff is wrapping that normally wouldn't be wrapping. I promise you, my code does not usually look this bad. Okay, trust me on that. Yeah, this will return. It'll return the font family as an optional. But then I'm just checking if it's a string. That's crazy. Huh. Should I'm thinking like this, I don't want this to be a problem, right? Like, why wouldn't I just return an empty string here? Because then it would fail silently, and I wouldn't know what's going on either. I guess maybe I would rather it just fail if there's no font family, because then I'll try to render a font with no font family, and that's gonna fail anyway. But I guess you could argue that at that point it would be better for it to fail when I'm trying to render it, because then I can say in the renderer, hey, you tried to render X text and you didn't pass in a font, you know, and I think I do that in my renderer. Just trying to think, like, in terms of engine ergonomics, like how should this work, you know? Because I do have like optionals here in a few places, but I think I guard against it everywhere. I think when I was rewriting this code to make it work with the reactive stuff, I must have like rewritten how I was getting the font family and just forgot to check for the optional access. So yeah, I think this will fix it. I just finished that build. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Options. There we go. Okay. Cool. These options look terrible, but wait, do I still have this? Do I still have that commented out? Oh, I do. That test meant nothing. Still had it commented out. Ah. Okay. I'm happy I'm actually able to be productive though on this stream. The last not that I mind, right? But like last stream, I didn't write like any code. And as soon as I tried to, I got hit with like a 40-minute debug, not a 40-minute build, and then that took the steam out the stream because I'm not gonna make you guys watch me build for 40 minutes, you know. But it was just there was an issue that I found where I was gonna have to change like some very core things in the engine, and the fan out from that thing is insane. And even with like PCH, and even with me trying to be really good with my includes and all that stuff, there's still room for like improvement. But the build would have been really slow because in general, I have my builds for this project, like to build the whole thing, game and engine together from fresh. I think it takes like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not great. I'll be honest. But building just the game itself is pretty fast. It's just like the engine, there's so many places where like you're using primitives provided by the engine or like things are interconnected. Just the nature of the type of project it is, it's painful to build, and I could be like really pedantic about like my includes and stuff like that to try to increase the build time on that, but then it makes my development way slower, like for iterating, especially since like the engine for the most part, unless I'm working on something like this where it's like a UI engine portion rewrite, it's pretty stable, so it's not worth that like huge cost of me refactoring a bunch of stuff just to increase the like fresh build. But man, it sucks when I have to do a fresh build. And not to mention, like, since I'm streaming, I have like the stream running, it's multicasting to YouTube and Twitch, and it's like using CPU, you know, so capturing the screens, recording everything, encoding everything, and sending it off. That's like, you know, it's significant enough that it affects the performance of my normal builds, you know. So like these builds, they're not usually this long. Like even with me touching this header file, right? Again, this stuff should not be in a header file. It needs to be cleaned up. But even with that, like these builds should not take as long as they do. I'm noticing my performance degrading on my thing. Like you know what it is? My cat's laying on my computer right now, and I think it's heating it up. I have like kernel task in my activity monitor, spiking and taking up CPU usage to try to cool it down. I may have to move her. She looks so like cozy though. Hey Totoro. Hey buddy. Excuse me. Hi, can you move? Can you move off my computer, please? She doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to do it. I wish I could show you guys. She looks so cute. She's so sleepy. I'll leave her. If it becomes a problem, I'll force her to move, but it's okay right now, I think. I don't know. My performance is getting pretty bad. Cat thermal throttling. Yeah, literally. It's actually cat thermal throttling. Oh. Okay. Options. Yeah, okay. So now the text is correctly rendering. Cool. The color is wrong and stuff like that, but I don't know if you guys can even see this. It says output device in like black, but the text is rendering. So that fixed that. I do think I have to remove her. I think I gotta move her. I gotta do it because my performance is actually getting really bad. One sec, let me kill this. Let me move the kitty. Give me a second, chat. Whew, okay. I am back. There we go. Okay. I had to bring out the big guns. She was like oh my, I wish you guys let me show you. Man, there's no good way for me to do this right now live, but like as soon as she got up, my CPU load is dropping because kernel task is no longer like hopping in to try to throttle my computer. That is so funny. I had to grab the vacuum because she like my setup is like 3 screens in the corner, and then she likes to sit behind the screen because I have my laptop back there. So she laid on the laptop and like gets all the heat, and I have no way of like accessing behind there. I couldn't get her to move, so I had to grab the vacuum, and she's scared of the vacuum. And I just had to like, I put it near her and I just turned it on and she bolted. She was out of there. I feel bad, but the show must go on. Am I right? Cat frame drops on stream. Yeah. Where else are you going to see that? Name one other streamer where you had frame rate drops because their cat was sitting on their PC. Okay. Okay, cool. We're good on the text stuff now. I'll do some more thought on the font family stuff. I think what I'll do for now as a stopgap, since I know that let me see, from an optional, can I dot empty? I mean, dot empty will do what I want. It'll tell me if it's an empty. No, but that's from the string. I might have to look this up for optionals. Gonna just switch to my handy dandy browser. Okay, this is from last time. Ignore that. Okay, let's see. Optional, check if empty. How do we do this? Has value. That'll just, yeah, if it has a value. We can compare against null op. I'm trying to think. What I want to do is almost like check if it has a value and if if it's like an empty string. Cause like, well, no, I think you shouldn't be passing in an empty string. And if you pass an empty string, then the frame renderer, like the text renderer, will tell you, hey, you're doing something weird. Don't do that. So I think I can just check. I think I can just check, like, even just this. Like, if I had done that, I think, like, that will implicitly check if it's null opt. Actually, sorry, I just realized I'm still on that browser. So I think what I just did was I removed that check against the equal sign. I think that should just check if it's a null opt. Let me remove the font family again just to double check that. I'm curious. Corbin says, that's crazy, lol. I've never seen a cat nearly crash a stream before. Yeah, it's crazy. They pack a lot of heat. They're all furry and all that. Trapping all that heat on them. It's crazy. Like, I'm legitimately like a huge performance increase right now. Just off kicking her off. I feel bad though. She must have been so nice and warm. She's over there like laying on the ground now. Rolled up into a little ball. But my apartment's not cold. I'll say that. So she shouldn't be freezing. All right. So there are things I need to do to like improve my build times in general. I had like a whole project as part of this game. Like once it got bad enough, I had to go through and like do like a strong performance pass. Not even like, I wouldn't call it, I get build performance is what I would call it, to improve my build times because they were abysmal. Like sometimes I would make a change in like 10 minutes off of like a one-line change of rebuilding. Okay, that actually won't do what I thought. I do need to check has value. Yeah. And I need to check if it doesn't have a value. Yeah. There you go. Because I don't want, like, it's just, if I passed in text and you didn't pass in a font, fine. That's fine. But it shouldn't crash the whole game. That's not nice. The engine should be nicer than that, right? Ah. Okay. Okay, there we go. Roller Go Studio. Options. Okay. I was not expecting that to crash. Wow. What? Now I'm perplexed. Because passing in the font family fixed it. Great. Am I checking for font family anywhere else? Did I miss it somewhere else? Because there's no way it's crashing here. I'm gonna put a log here. Yeah, I'm gonna put a... Damn, that's not even gonna be that useful though. That log's not gonna be that useful. Okay, so with... Let me see. Where else are we using font family in here? Okay, in render text. Oh, I mean, when we actually go to render the text. Did I change? I don't remember changing this, but like... Dot has value. If there's... Okay. Font family. Okay, and that this is after we checked it. We would have returned already, so we don't need to do it there. When we calculate the text width, that's another spot. Yeah. Okay, but do we always calculate text width? You know what? I think that's where the bad optional value, the bad optional access was. Because we're calling calculate text width in a few places. And this is going to happen. This is going to happen if if calculated width is equal to 0 or less, and the text is not empty, and we... Oh, but okay. Okay, it wouldn't have, okay. So putting that has value check here, fixing it there, is good. It'll prevent us from ever getting here. However, the text width property still will do this. It'll still go and calculate text width. There's nothing like stopping it. I could put this same check there. Text width. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like if text is empty, or if the styles oopsies. Has value. Return not has value. One sec. Oh, I did that. I did put not. Okay. What don't you like here? Text width equals. Oh, right. Return 0. Yeah. Yeah, you can't have a text width. Your text's not going to get rendered if your text is empty, or if you don't have a font family. That should be better. Okay. Corbin says, what do you use as a dev box? A Mac? It says Mac OS app icon in the build process. Yeah, I use a Mac. I think it's a M1 right now. I've had it for a few years now. It's decent. I used to use Linux earlier in my career, and I loved Linux. It was amazing. And I still love Linux. It's amazing. But I find that I spend so much time configuring it, because I love configuring all my stuff, that I end up being like really not productive. And I spend just more time configuring it and fighting with stuff than I do building. And I feel like Mac, or OS X, since I think it's for BSD, right? It's Unix-like, so I get a lot of the power of Linux and like the way that the command line works and all that, without actually having to rely on Linux and like, any of the driver issues that come with that. It's been nice. I'll say that. So like my setup is basically like OS X. I think iTerm 2 with tmux to do like the terminal multiplexing. That's what you're seeing here. Like every once in a while when I press something, you'll see like 1, 2, 3 pop up, and that lets me switch between like different panes inside my terminal. And then I use NeoVim for my actual code. Corbin says, I used Linux on a ThinkPad for years. Same. Switched to Mac with the M1 generation. Now I upgrade my Mac like every 2 years. M5 Max MVP here. Nice, dude. M5. Jeez. That thing is a monster. I also used to use the ThinkPad back in the day with the one with like the... I don't know if it's all of them. The one that I had specifically had like the little red nipple in the middle. And like at first it's so weird to use it, and I had to use it because I got it like refurbished, and the actual like the trackpad didn't work at all. The mouse buttons worked, but the trackpad didn't. And so I had to use the nipple, and like I said, at first it's weird. It does not feel good, but you can get really good with it. Like you can like with barely moving my fingers, I was like zipping across the screen, and it was amazing. And then you can take that to the next level and then realize like, okay, wait, like I can just use my keyboard for everything, and I don't even need a mouse for most things, especially like if you're doing like Vim or whatever, or like any app that has like Vim key bindings. Okay, that fixed it, but okay, now the text is not rendering. That makes sense because now I don't have a font family. Okay. I think that's preferable to what was happening before. I feel like maybe the engine doesn't pre-ship with the font family. But maybe I should just have it default to some sort of font at some point. I'll write that as a to-do somewhere. Let me see. Go on GitHub real quick. Make myself a little bug ticket. Descent Horizon. Got quite a to-do list in here. There's a lot of stuff. But I'll add the default font family to the engine. When no font family is passed, there is no text rendered and no errors. Let's default to something sensible. Okay. And then I'll throw in, I think that it's kind of a bug, I guess, and it's engine work. So that's good. That's all I need. And let's put that for MVP milestone. That's enough information for now, and I can figure that out some other time. Okay. Now, moving on. We got a warning here. Font family doesn't like the position, so font family will be initialized after. Yeah, I'll just move it over after. No point in having a warning for no reason, right? Oopsies. Okay. We'll build that. That should fix that. The stuff. What's interesting is that the text color is black. I mean, I guess there's nothing here really saying that the text color should be anything else than black, though. Options container. Why? What's interesting to me is, okay, it has a text, right? But, like, where was it getting its color from before? Did I just, like, somehow mess up when I reformatted this? That's weird to me. Options container, then option container. Ooh. Oh. Yeah. I think that's what happened. I think that's definitely what happened. Main menu, style sheet. Options container. Wait, no, I didn't mean main menu option screen. Okay. Option container. Yeah, okay, this was supposed to be option container. And I accidentally I put an extra S here when I was renaming stuff and like refactoring. And so it started using the wrong style sheet, the wrong class. And this one has everything it needs. Wow. Okay, I mean, that was still a good bug to fix, even though it didn't matter in the grand scheme of it was a red herring, I guess is how I would put that. But like not having a font family should not crash the UI regardless, crash the whole game regardless. So it was gonna need to get fixed at some point anyway. Okay, Corbin says the trackpad red thing is the track point red thing is the best input device. I love it. I do love it. It's like the way that my setup is with my current like desk is I've almost emulated that, but with a keyboard and a mouse. It's not as elegant, but I have like a split key keyboard, right? And I put it like shoulder width apart, and then in the middle I keep my mouse instead of keeping my mouse to the right, and it actually works pretty well. Because I don't use my mouse if I don't have to. I try to do everything through like NeoVim or through my keyboard shortcuts or something like that. So yeah. Okay. Now the options still look absolutely terrible. At least like the Y and height stuff look bad. But they're loading now. Oh my god, that looks so much better. Oh my god, look how much better that looks. That just fixed like all of the UI. Ah, yes. Oh, that's such a win. That is such a win. I didn't have to do anything. Look at that. Okay. Wow. My beautiful screen is back. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Now, next thing I want to do, as I said, I was working on some graphics options earlier today. I was working on the frame rate cap stuff, and then I was working on, I also added VSync as an option. So I think what I'll do is I'll add those in now. It shouldn't be too hard. So I think what I'll do, I think I'll put VSync under window behavior and then frame rate underneath VSync. I actually don't have this anywhere, but like the frame rate cap shouldn't be modifiable if VSync is enabled. So that'll be interesting behavior to implement. Okay, so main menu options screen. Yeah. Okay. So effectively what I need to do, I need to add a new option to the graphics portion of this. Right below window behavior. It's going to be name. Let's do VSync first, because it's going to be way simpler. Because the frame rate cap thing is going to be like, I want it to be a slider, but I want that slider to only jump to specific values. I don't want it to be like, you can set your frame rate cap to like 36 FPS. You know, I want it to be like 30, 60, 90, 120, and then let's say unlimited. And that'll be a little more complicated to implement. We can do that after the VSync. So, okay, option type, it's going to be option type toggle. Toggle? Yeah. Let me see. What was yeah, toggle. Okay. I'm gonna actually copy this just to make my life easier, so that I don't have to remember what fields there are. It's not like I can look up the documentation. I have to read the code to do everything. Okay, so VSync is option type toggle config, and it's gonna bind to settings UI model. So binding effectively just says, hey, like, what thing is this affecting, right? And I have a settings UI model, which is just a bunch of signals. And remember, those signals then are used to drive the UI state. So effectively, we're saying, hey, this element is going to bind to the UI model, and then it'll update its value, but then it'll also like derive its value from that. So it's like a kind of like a two-way binding. Okay, so we don't have one here already for VSync, so we'll go ahead and do that. I can add the frame rate cap as well. Signal, it'll be a Boolean, and we'll say VSync enabled. And then Singularity, pulse, signal. I need to check in my settings. Oopsies. In my settings. My frame rate cap, it's a UINT 16. And then my VSync is a Boolean. Okay. So I'll pass that in here. I'll store that as well. UINT 16. And then frame rate cap. Cool. Then so basically what happens is, like, I define the struct for the UI model. And then I need to tell it what to synchronize from, because the UI model is strictly just UI state. I have an idea for how to improve this a little bit ergonomically. It's not going to change the performance of it. But this is something that kind of came to life as I was doing the Pulse rewrite, which I'm still in the middle of, right? But I kind of want to do this, restructure this to be a little bit more like Redux, like if you've ever worked with React. And I can just have reducers and like a Redux like state that I can pull in. This is kind of already doing that in a more like C++y way, but I don't like the ergonomics of this, because then I have to manually like specify, oh, sync from this thing, you know. It works fine, but it's not as clean as it could be, you know. So I'm gonna find a way to clean that up eventually, but I think I'm gonna focus on finishing the rewrite first, and then add that on as like a additive update. Okay, vsync enabled, and the UI model is going to equal Singularity. If that's yeah, that's going to read from environment manager, because settings manager in my game, so settings manager is like a game struct, right? And then environment manager is the actual engine, and vsync and like the frame rate are an engine concern and not necessarily a game concern, even though like it's the game exposing that setting, right? Like the way that I think about it is every individual game should have control over its own frame rate configuration, but that setting or that like property should be stored and controlled by the engine, because the engine uses it internally to determine, okay, how quickly do I need to actually output these frames, or what do I need to do to the window to enable the vsync, you know, with OpenGL and stuff like that. So that's stored in the engine. But again, the game itself, any individual game that's using the engine, can choose whether it wants to expose like these options, you know, because let's say you wanted to make a game, you didn't want to expose a vsync option, you know, fine. You can just specify, okay, vsync is always on, then pass that to the engine, right? Or same thing with the frame rate. Like the game wants to be capped at 30 FPS, not allow users to do it. It should be able to do that. So that's why it's kind of it reads from somewhere else than where it's gonna write to. Okay, get actually is vsync enabled. Okay, and then frame rate cap is gonna equal to Singularity, also environment manager, and then that's gonna be get frame rate target, right? Cool. I think that's all we need on that side of things. And then, yeah, in the binding now for this vsync option, we need to actually say to use from the settings model, we need to use vsync enabled. And then on change, right? Settings manager, there's a set graphics vsync enabled. That's a Boolean. And then on change, we'll get passed in a new val, right? In this case, it's going to be a Boolean. And then we're going to just pass, like, I'll format this a little bit better for this stream, even though this is not going to look as nice in my actual code, because that could just fit on one line in my normal zoom level. But what am I doing here? That's not how I format that. Okay, there you go. This is how it's supposed to be formatted. Anyway, so like on change, we'll get in a new value, whatever the change value is, right? Like if it was false, you click true. True is what's going to get passed in here. Then we're going to take that, we're going to pass that to settings manager, set graphics vsync enabled, cast it to a bool first. So that should work. I don't actually have the engine listening for vsync settings changes right now, so like it'll update the engine setting, but then the engine currently is not doing anything with that setting. But that's fine for now. I just want to see this get in there. Oh yeah. Need to get some more water in a bit here. For those of you who are working on your own games in chat, what engines are you all using? Curious to see what the spread out is. Let's see how this looks. bum, bum, bum. Okay, options. VSync, okay, it's there. And then it defaults to disabled, so that makes sense. Clicking enabled actually is not doing anything. Let me see. This is doing something. This one's not doing anything. Set graphics VSync enabled. I wonder why. So settings manager, set graphics VSync enabled. That'll. Oh, okay. So right now that's only updating the actual settings. It's not actually updating the engine. That makes sense. So we're reading from the environment manager, but we're not actually like updating it right now. VSync is set VSync enabled. VSync enabled. There we go. That should be it. That should fix it. Corbin says, I'm writing my own engine with similar functionality to my 1990s legacy game I'm modernizing. Old C++ bespoke engine on direct draw for Windows, new Golang on WebAssembly. Oh, damn. Using web GPU with shaders as the main path with a fallback to CPU rasterization. Very cool. I have a little bit of experience with I have a little bit of experience with WebAssembly. If you can believe it, I can actually talk sometimes. I was building, before this project, I was working on a programming language, a functional programming language that compiles to WebAssembly. But that's cool. So is your goal then to put your game on the web? Is that why you're building it with WebAssembly? Or are you intending that it's going to run in like a virtual machine? Or both, I guess, is possible, right? Okay, there you go. Look at that. Now we can actually swap VSync. And it started off enabled. I'm going to disable it and quit the game and see if that saved. It should have saved. But it's always worth double checking. Check your work, kids. Check your work. Okay, yep, and that disabled. Cool, okay. So now the VSync setting is added. And I can go another time and just actually implement it, or maybe later in the stream. We'll see. Now is gonna be the slightly more tricky option. It's gonna be the frame rate cap. So frame rate cap. And actually let's just go ahead and do that. Get it on its own line since we know we're gonna do it anyway. And just grab all these so I don't have to retype all this. Okay. And then this is gonna bind to the frame rate cap in settings UI model. No viable. Oh, right. Yeah, I have this as a toggle. I actually need this to be a slider. And then so slider option. Let me grab the slider option config from here. Okay. Boom. Get rid of that. Okay. Frame rate cap. Yeah, so problem is so you can set it to either like 30, 60, 90, 120, or unlimited, right? Now, I need that to map to a slider. What I can do is, I think step by default on slider option config, it steps by one. Let me see, slider option config. Slider option controller, is that in slider option controller? Where is slider option? Where does this come from? Slider option. Oh, it's in the same. Oh, it's in menu option. Okay. Step is 0.01 by default. Okay, so I start with 0 and I'll. Yeah. Okay. here's what I'm thinking. Like, we only really have a handful of concrete values that we want to step between. I can have it step by steps of 1, right? And then when I set it, depending on what number it was set to, so I can convert that to like an actual frame rate target. And that way I don't have to overcomplicate this. So like, for example, if let's say 30 is the first value on the slider, and then the next value we want it to be 60, we can say, okay, 30 is 0, 1 is 60, 2 is 90, 3 is 120, and then 4 is unlimited. So in that case, 0 is min, 4 is max, step is 1, and then multiple value format. Yeah, okay. And then, so what we can do is, obviously we want to show, like, we can't just show 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So we need a value formatter that's going to format based off of, like, the frame rate that it's actually setting it to, right? So this multiple value formatter won't work. I'll have to change it to something else. Oh, whoops, I changed these values in the wrong spot. My bad. So yeah, min is going to be, like I said, 0. Max is, I think I said it was going to be 4. And then step is 1. Frame rate cap. Yeah. No conversion to float. Why do you want it to be a float? Oh. Oh. Yeah. So slider option config. It wants all of its values, the binding values, to be floats. That actually does complicate things a little bit. Maybe I can generify it a little. Because, like... Yeah, I think when I was building the slider, I was always imagining it as like, okay, you're sliding between some values, and they're always going to be floats. That's obviously not the case here. But then I also don't know. I guess I could just use like any generic like number type, right? Then I can't set these sensible defaults. Interesting. I'm not sure. Let me catch up on some chat while I think. Okay, Corbin says, yep, it's an MMORPG. Backend is native. Go on my dedicated server. All Linux 10. Biggest challenge, client needs to starve the GC, or I get frame drops due to the slow GC on Wasm. Yeah. Yeah, Wasm. Oh, okay, right, because you're using Go. I was gonna say, because Wasm by default doesn't have GC, but I'm guessing like your Go implementation has its own GC. And starve the GC equals a bunch of hand-rolled arena bump allocators strewn through the code. It's fugly. It runs on everything from an iPad to an iPhone to a Chromebook to Mac, Windows, Linux, though. That's the beauty of Wasm, as you surely know. Yeah. Yeah, that, I mean, that makes everything worth it in the end. Because, like, you have this, you're compiling to one target. And as long as that target can run Wasm, that's all you care about. Yeah, that's cool, though. Anybody else working on some games? What other engines are we got out here? Okay. I'm missing a comma here. Set graphics. No, this is set frame rate cap. However, yeah, this is gonna need to get cast to uint 16 eventually. So, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Like, the binding, obviously, like, it's a uint, right? It's a uint 16. The slider option config wants any binding that it gets passed in to be a float. For the purposes of the UI, we can represent the frame rate cap as a float if we want to, because it's just for the UI. And then it's actually stored and used as the uint16 when we need it. But like to keep, like, I don't want to have to like bloat the slider option config if usually it is just going to be used for floats, and that's just gonna add more work for really almost no benefit. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe when I do, where is it? In the settings UI model, maybe I just represent, I don't know, this feels icky. Representing the frame rate cap as a float. I don't know. Cause like, okay, what's my option here? I can change slider option config, and then I don't have any more sensible defaults. Or I could generify it. I can just say like, okay, like I'll have to specify a type for the slider option config, and then if I specify the type, then the steps will be of that same type. That's not bad. That's pretty clean, actually. Let me see. Maybe I can do that. So I'll use template here. Type name T. Yeah, the only thing that sucks is then that way I don't get like a good min and max. But I think that might be worth it. Because like, am I ever gonna really use a slider option config without passing in the min, max, and step? Like, the only time where this is super beneficial is if I'm doing like a percentage and it's 0 to 100, and like that's nice, but it's also not that hard to just pass those values in when they're needed. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Actually, what I need to make sure that T is a numerical type. I do want these to be initialized to whatever, to some value. Yeah, and then the binding is going to be of type T. The function for the value formatter is going to be of type T. Yeah, T. See, but then the value formatter, I can't even have a default implementation for it if I generify it like this. Let me see. I was gonna search something up. What was I gonna search up? Value formatter T. Oh, right. I was gonna make sure that that slider option config only takes in T's that match numerical types. So let me go search that up. But only numeric types. Is arithmetic type trait. Use it in, yeah. Yeah, template is arithmetic. Okay. Alright, so I think I need to use this is arithmetic trait with enable if. Yeah. Okay, let's try that. Let's see. So that was, and then type name equals type name enable if is arithmetic t value t. Did I fuck something up? No, okay. Okay. I think I might have, actually. Expected template parameter. Oh, type name. Yeah, okay. Okay. Cool. I think this should allow me now to... So I'm gonna have to qualify all of these, obviously. Let me go up to the top here. Just start from the top. So yeah, you see like the volume ones, they were super nice to just have everything defaulted. Let me see if I can even, can I do that? Like, can I just have like sensible defaults for specific types? So like struct, generic, or like, well, how do I phrase that? Generic type default values. The default concrete type T64. Okay. So okay, I think maybe I'm not wording this correctly. That's a good. This is useful though because we can say here, okay, like it's gonna default to float. So I do think I want to do that. I think I'm gonna, in the code, I think I'm gonna go and update that struct so that here t by default is equal to float. And that's nice, but that doesn't solve everything. I still want to have like my nice default like min equals 0, you know, 0.0, or min, and then max is 1.0. So we're gonna use a little AI. Well, let's see how Gemini does. You don't really usually use Gemini. In the above struct, is it possible to set default values depending on the type of t? Like if t is float, have min default to 0.1 and max default to 1.0. Yes, you can do it. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Okay. No. Fuck. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Because then I have to, like... I guess it's not that bad. I just have to define it for floats, doubles, and integral types. That's not that bad. Corbin says Gemini 3.5 Flash is great so far for me. I haven't really played with Gemini. Like I tried it, I want to say like a year or two ago, and it was dog shit. It was like borderline unusable. And so like I've only really been using like GPT. Like I think 5.5 is really good. I tried Claude Opus. Claude Opus is really good too. Is it Claude? I think it's Claude. But my daily driver, whenever I, because I use AI as kind of like Google, pretty often. Because like how would I have even asked this question in Google? You know what I mean? Like it would have been a painful like few minutes of Googling around trying to find if this syntax even exists, you know. But no, this was good. It figured out what I wanted. Yeah, I think I'll implement this. I think this is worth implementing. Because then that lets me be pretty generic with how my slider option stuff is set up. So yeah, okay. So I'll have a get default min. Let me format this a little nicer. And then I'll have a get default max. And then I'll do a get default step. I need to actually check after I set up these functions. I need to check what geez, I need to check what my what's it called? My original defaults were for the float, because I don't remember what it was. Okay, so I need to do a static get default min. Okay, and then if so if the type is float, then we'll return. Let me just check what I had it as. Like get diff. Where's this file? It's not pwd, right? What was the how do I view my clipboard in NeoVim? My registers. Reg. Okay. Oops. Reg. Oof. Let me see. I know one of the registers. There we go. Okay. It's the % register that has the current file. So let me do get diff. Is this even gonna work? I don't think it will actually. %. Oh, okay, it did work. Okay. No, wait. Get diff %. Okay, so yeah, my min was 0, my max was 1, and my step was 0.1. So start with 0. And then here, I'll just do the other ones too, while I remember the numbers. Static t get default max. If same. So it's a float, and we're gonna get the max. We'll return 1, and then I'll do the same for the step. Get default step. Same b t float. Return. Geez, I don't even remember. I think it was 0.01 f. I think. Let me just check that again. Yeah, 0.01. Okay, now I just need to do more if statements for the other types. Hmm. Maybe instead of is same v is, because that, like, not, because I just need integral versus non-integral. What's non-integral? It's like, forget the word for it. There's integral. I need the type for if it's like a float or a double or whatever. Is not literal, not is arithmetic. Is functional, no. So it wouldn't be is scalar, right? It could be a scalar, it might be a scalar. Is floating point? No. No, because that's just gonna, let me just check it. Let me just look that up real quick. C++ is floating point. V is floating point. If a specific type. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I want. Is floating point. V T. There you go. Because double and float, they need to behave the same way. And then if it's not floating point, it's going to be integral. So then we'll just return 0. Oh, whoops. I had you guys on my browser still. It's so hard to switch back and forth things. Yeah. Yeah, because if it's going to be an arithmetic type, and it's either going to be floating point, yeah, all arithmetic types, as far as I understand it, should be either a floating point or an integral. So if it's not floating point, it'll be integral, and then I can just return 0. Turn 1. I don't even know if that's like a sensible default, but whatever. For an int, you have a slider with just like an on or off. I mean, because like, yeah, and then return 1 for the step for the integral one, so it's literally 0 to 1. Okay, I have some errors in here. Slider option config. Why don't you like me? Use of class requires template arguments. Oh god, is this gonna be like combinatorial explosion here? Because then it's like, okay, well, the option config can be, the slider config can be 50,000 different types. Not really, but it's, yeah, that'll only be like a handful of types. Option, yeah. Okay. Requires template arguments. Okay, so can I just template? Oopsies. Yeah, no, it is template type name. But I don't think I wrapped that. I always forget how to, yeah. And then slider option config T. What? Oh, I can't. Template type name T, like that, right? Okay. Okay. And then now this option config can be of T. That's a yikes. I don't like that. I don't think I like that. Because then no viable constructor. So like, okay, float. Okay, cool. I think that works. We'll have a float there. This is also going to be a float slider option config. And then this is also a float. It's the same thing. All right. And then here, 16T. Beautiful. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the set function wants a frame rate cap. That's actually perfect because that'll line up really nicely with our steps. So then what I can do is basically I just need to actually have like a switch case, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. A switch case on the new val. I'm gonna cast that to uint16. Yeah. Okay. And then we'll have frame rate cap start at, let's say, yeah, we can just say it starts at FPS 30. Whoa. And then case if it's 0, well actually if it's 0 I don't care. If it's 1, cap is equal, I like literally never write switch statements. Let me look up how switch in C++ is written. C++ switch statement. Yeah, okay. I had it right. Okay. Cap is going to be frame rate cap FPS 60. Break. Yeah. If it's 2, we'll set it to 90. We can clean this stuff up later if I think of a better way to do it. I'm just going to try to get it working first. Yes. 120. And then it's like I don't even need to set a default because I'm gonna case 0 cap is gonna be frame rate cap 30 there, FPS 30 and break. And then the default here, then it's gonna be frame rate cap is equal to frame rate cap unlimited. And break. Okay, that works. And then when I pass in the actual frame rate cap, I can just do cap. Cool, that works. Now this goes back to being a float. This slider option config here, float. Vector of menu. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I fucked myself there a little bit. Because they're not going to be all the same type. What the? Let me see. Menu option. Where was that? Okay. So menu option contains an option config. Yeah. Yeah. Argument deduction is not allowed. Okay. Slider option config can be of type T. And I don't want to, like, menu option should be generic enough that it can take in any type of slider option config. Problem is, I have this variant where it has a type T inside of it. Oh, let's see. I want to see if the AI can help us. Anyway, I can have slider option config be generic without having to templatize the menu option struct. Damn, no AI? No AI for that? Where's my AI? Am I gonna really have to go? How do I trigger? There you go. AI mode. Boom. Just bring me straight to the AI. Removing the... Well... By removing it from option config to achieve this, I must erase the type or use a type safe wrapper. I can use any instead of slider option config. Yeah, I mean, I originally had it as a float. I could use variant. Yeah. Damn. Okay. I might have to go the variant route. And then I'll have to visit. That doesn't feel great, I'm not gonna lie. Because it's already inside of a variant. Slider option config. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. What does the code end up looking like here? So if I decide that I'm gonna use a variant, then I think when I actually go to render it, let me see, slider component, controller, slider option controller. When I go and get the value, yeah, this is all broken right now because I just changed it, but honestly, this is turning out to be like way more work than it's worth. I think I might just want to store the frame rate cap as a float in the settings model just to simplify this. Like it's not worth all the templating and all of the specificity to make it tight. Like, yeah, no, this is not worth it. It's not worth it. I thought it was going to be simpler. It's just not worth it. Okay, so I'll store as float in the UI model. Okay. And then I need to go back to here. I can basically undo all my changes in here. That sucks. That would have been nice to support, but I don't want this to be a headache, you know? Maybe another time. Okay. That's good. Back to what it was. Slider. Yep. Okay. And then I don't need these type arguments here. Remove those. Step 1.0. Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, it comes in as a float. Requires. Yeah. I can't do a switch on a float, right? Okay. Just a couple of if statements, I guess. Let me cast it to a float though. Or did I do that? Any cast? Oopsies. Float v. If v is 0, then it'll set cap to that. Then I'll just do an else if here. Yeah. Okay. There we go. And then else cap is unlimited and break. Okay. So this is fine for now. We can clean it up later if it becomes a problem, but I think it's okay. I think that works. Cool. Where else is okay? Remove these type definitions. I like the type specifications here. Those are all good. Okay. Now, where I go and I sync the settings UI model here in the sync function. When I sync the frame rate cap, I get target frame rate here. And then this is going to return an actual UINT 16 to me. I need to convert that into a float that matches that same pattern. So I'll just I'll create a new function for it to keep it contained. UI model. Sync frame rate target. Now, I'm going to leave a comment here because this is a good place for a comment. I don't really use comments very often because I feel like they're usually code smell. Like your code should be readable enough that you don't need comments. And if it's not, that usually is a sign of a refactor being necessary. What I do think is useful is negative comments. Like a comment explaining why you did something one way instead of another. So that like later in the future you don't accidentally try to rewrite something or go in with an assumption that you shouldn't have, right? I think like those kind of comments are pretty useful. So I'm going to leave a comment here. Obviously I need to flesh this out still, but the signal for frame rate target is stored as a float because the slider option config only works with float values instead of complicating the implementation of the slider option config. We just map our frame rate into some buckets. I don't know, into some. I don't feel like buckets is a good word. Into some predetermined float steps that correspond to each target value. I think that's fine. Okay. So okay. This will give us the actual target, right? That's stored in the engine. Ooh, yeah, okay. If target is 30, return 0. If target 60, honestly, let me 90. And then 120, same thing. 2 and 3. Otherwise, we're just gonna return 4. And 4 is unlimited. Okay. Now, settings UI model. We need to actually go and add that function to it. Float. What was it? What did I call it again? Sync frame rate target, please. Okay, so float sync frame rate target. There we go. Okay. So then now that'll correctly represent that. That'll correctly represent our. That'll correctly update our cap on change. And then the only thing we need left is the value formatter for the frame rate cap. Right now it's just gonna, it uses the multiple value formatter, which is like multiples of, so it's gonna be like 1x, 2x, 3x, and that's not useful. And so what I'll do is I'll make a custom value formatter for it. So here we'll do, I think it's any val, right? Let me just make sure that that's what the value formatter is taken. Yeah. Oh, okay, no, they take in floats. That's even better. So we'll take in a float, and then if val is 1, return 30 FPS. Yeah, and then I can just do this for the different options. So 60, 90, and then 120. Otherwise, return unlimited. I think that'll do it. I think that'll do what we want. I am probably going to call it after this finishes building and I validate that this works. It's getting late. It's almost 1 a.m. for me here in New York. But I do want to see this working before I hop off. It's very important to me that this works. I don't like doing stuff like this where I'm just mapping these values like directly. It feels so like non-elegant, you know? But I feel like in this case the simplicity just can't be beat. I think if I come across enough times that I do need to start having like if I'm constantly doing like numerical slider options, I might have to just go and bite the bullet and like switch it to use the variant stuff. That was like way too much for like a one-off case, you know, where I could just manually map it. Corbin says almost 1 a.m. here too, trying to optimize this Go client. LOL. Yeah, oof. Where in the world are you, Corbin? Sounds like you're probably same time zone as me, or definitely same time zone as me. Okay, frame rate cap 30 FPS. That doesn't sound right as the default, but let's see. Okay. Look at that. Unlimited is the first option. That's not what I want, but it is working. I think I just have something mapping wrong somewhere. Should be a pretty easy fix. Let me back to the code. Let's see. So when I am mapping, let me see, UI settings model. Jesus, I can't type. UI settings model. When I sync frame rate target, if target is 30, I return 0. And then, that's why. 0, 1, 2, 3. Yep, 0, 0, 0. Okay, I think that'll fix our mapping there. Okay. Maryland. Oh, Maryland. Okay, that's not too far. Well, it's a bit of a drive, but it's not too far. From where I am, at least. How do you like Maryland? Have you lived there like your whole life, or did you move there at some point in your life? I've been in New York like pretty much my entire life. I came from New York when I was 3. Well, came from New York. Jesus, I'm tired. You can tell. I'm tired. I came from Ukraine when I was 3 with my family, and we moved to the Bronx in New York, and I lived with them there for like 16 years, something like that. Then I moved to Queens with my wife and been here ever since. But yeah, it's been my entire life. I don't know really anything outside of New York. Like I visit other states, obviously, and like to travel and all that, but haven't lived anywhere else. Okay, let's see. Okay, unlimited, then 120. then 90. Okay, cool. 30 to unlimited. Okay. And I think it's actually updating the frame rate on the engine too. What's interesting is like unlimited is overlapping here. I'll have to like play around with that a little bit, but looks decent. Cool. Well, there you go. VSync and frame rate cap implemented in our graphic settings. Very nice. That's a successful implementation. Okay. Cool. Well, all right. Corbin says, lived in Maryland all my life. Been to New York City for a bunch for Broadway. Nice. Nice. Very cool. And then Corbin says, "Ви приїхав з України. Круто." Nice. I am studying Ukrainian language. Slava Ukraini. Oh, that's awesome, dude. That's so cool. Wow, I was not expecting that, I gotta say. Oh, that's very neat. That's so cool. You don't meet people very often who are studying Ukrainian or speak Ukrainian. Um, are you yourself Ukrainian, or is it just something that you decided that was interesting and you wanted to pick it up? Gonna go ahead and start committing this stuff. Always commit your code, kids. Because imagine I just did all this work, and imagine my computer crashes, and then my hard drive gets destroyed, and then like I lose all that. That's like a good what? Like that's almost 3 hours worth of work on stream, and then I did a bunch of work from earlier that I didn't commit because I forgot to before the stream. So like 6 hours worth of work, not ideal. Okay, what did I do? What did I do? I fixed bad optional access when loading the options screen. And then I added VSync and frame rate cap settings to options. And as a byproduct of fixing all that stuff, I also got the options looking correct again, so that's nice. I'll just go ahead and push that. There you go. Okay. Corbin says, not Ukrainian, but my teacher says I'm an adopted Ukrainian. That's funny. He calls me Ridny. For anybody who doesn't speak Ukrainian, Ridny is like family, basically. Cool. That's awesome. Well, I think I'm gonna call it here. It's been really awesome hanging out with everybody here. You know, thanks everybody for hopping in and keeping me company while I lose my mind and debug stuff and just struggle. But it was nice. It was a good time. Thanks, Corbin. I appreciate you hopping in here again. It was a good time. But yeah, I'm gonna call it here, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody, and then everybody who's not about to go to bed, have a good day. See ya.